anyone would want to paint classical paintings. I want to be a modern contemporary artist, and this is a modern subject.
Despite the failure of his first serious canvas, Manet's family enabled him to carry on painting, and in 1861 he received his first favourable response from the Salon, with two of his canvases accepted, a portrait of his parents and a picture of a Spanish saint. This was the first of Manet's paintings to display an obvious Spanish influence, at a time when a romanticised view of the Spanish way of life was popular in France. This influence on Manet continued over the following year in canvases such as 1862's Lola de Benares, a light, colourful depiction of a real Spanish dancer. He also painted bullfighting scenes, including one that was accepted by the 1864 Salon. Entitled episode of Bullfighting, strong criticism objective gives a clear indication of Manet's lifelong sensitivity. Depressed by the reaction, he destroyed virtually the whole canvas. By that time, however, Manet had become well known in Paris's artistic community. In fact, he had become notorious. In no small part, this stemmed from the influence of the French poet and critic Charles Baudelaire. For years, Baudelaire had argued for a new kind of painting, a visual art that would take as its subject matter not the idealized historical scenes favoured by the Salon, but real contemporary life. Manet met Baudelaire in 1860, and the two men became closely acquainted. Soon, Manet sought to become, with his friend memorably termed, the painter of modern life. Concert in the Tuileries, a small canvas from 1862, represented his first attempt at this bold new artistic aim.
Baudelaire believed that the artist should portray the heroism of modern life, and that was what Manet was attempting to do in Concert. He focused completely on the bodies of the bourgeoisie. It wasn't classical goddesses and so on. It was quite acceptable in a way because it was this class rather than the wealthy class that I called him painting.
Right actually on the very left-hand side of it was Manet himself, almost hidden against one of the trees behind a lady who wears a blue bonnet, is Baudelaire himself. And then you also get people like Edmond Durand, and you get Franklin Good. So that most of Manet's friends are depicted in painting. Also, when we see the painting, it has this very modernistic look at it. Curiously, the eye isn't actually set down into one particular part of the painting. It seems to know the story about picking up on one person and moving to another person, backwards and forth across the painting. And in a sense, that's very like what it would be like to be actually in the part itself.
Shoulder, neck, lower back, leg, arm, feeling.
Fearful of rejection, Manet chose not to submit Les Tours, the 1863 Salon. Instead, he chose to present a far more radical work that demonstrated his new, modern approach. It was another park scene, a canvas 11 feet long and 7 feet high, exactly the kind of proportions favoured by the official show. It would become one of the most controversial paintings ever. painting that displays an obvious debt to a great old master, the constant champêtre of the Renaissance Venetian Giorgione. Manet's use of the nude also followed in a long artistic tradition. The problem with contemporary nudity, it was defined in camera, as the clothing to men made abundantly clear. Nudity was acceptable within a historical or mythological scene. To place it in the present day is nothing short of outrageous. Unsurprisingly, the Salon jury rejected the book. However, Le Déjeuner received a full public showing. The Salon jury rejected so many books in 1863 that the Emperor, Napoleon III, famously insisted that all rejected works should be shown together as a special one-off show at the Salon building. When this Salon de Refusé opened, there was no doubt there was talk about cans. Critics and public fell over themselves and rushed to condemn Manet's work. Some chose to criticize technical aspects of the painting with its rough brushwork, commented upon by many. For most people, however, it was the brazen nakedness of the main female figure that placed Manet beyond compare. His response was to paint an even more audacious image, Olympian. Completed in the same year as Le Déjeuner, Olympia featured much in common with its notorious predecessor. Again, there was the influence of great Venetian painting that reveals to competition. The model used by Manet was Victorine Murat, the same young woman who posed for Le Déjeuner, and he once more depicted her in a scandalous state of undress. Even the painting's title seemed calculated to cause outrage. Olympia was a contemporary phrase for a prostitute.
With Olympia, again, didn't mean to shock, he meant to bring a Renaissance, the climbing nude of the goddess, up to date. The fact that he used Latin Roman for Pissarro is probably a mistake on his part, because this is what outraged people and men, for example, who didn't want to go around the gallery with their wives or their moms to be confronted with someone that they knew had done another wrong, so to speak.
Surprisingly, the Salon accepted Olympia for display at its 1865 event. Unsurprisingly, it was greeted with a storm of protest. Public critics again railed against what they considered an image of gross indecency. The Salon authorities were compelled to hang the painting high up on the wall for fear that it would be vandalized. However, the whole event was not a complete disaster for Manet. The 25-year-old Emile Zola wrote newspaper articles praising Manet's approach, opinions that lost him his job and played through readers. Manet's notoriety also began to appeal to a small number of radical artists just beginning to make their way in the world, a group led by a young painter from Le Havre, Claude Monet. At the time of the scandal, however, we know that Manet felt criticism deeply, but it's difficult to believe that he anticipated a favorable response given the events of 1863. Nonetheless, Manet was depressed by the scandal, leading to scornful response from his friend Baudelaire. It's really stupid that you should get so worked up. You're laughed at, your merits are not appreciated. So what? Do you think you're the first man to be in that position?
His whole emphasis was on the importance of the master study the movements on, and of wishing to recognize as part of the mainstream Salon work.
Ganesh Singh, nice art. Thank you, Ganesh Singh.
I think when you look at it, you can see that he both wanted to make a statement, but at the same time, he wanted to present something that really shocked the public. He was very much a revolutionary artist, a very complex character.
criticism of Manet's work in the 1860s derived not only from his choice of subject matter.
Viola, Onje, that's so good. Thank you so much.
The way that Manet approached his work was in essence a development of traditional scientific development. But he had been concerned with loosening up his Western culture. This was influenced from some of his study of master work. Plus his interest in literature and the way that this had an effect on the work.
This was new, that his use of colour was not impressionist reality. He used much of black, he wasn't painting outside, so he was doing studio work. And all these early works of the early 1860s are unclear.
Manet's distinctive technical approach can be seen in his 1868 Pennine Solo. The vast expanse of black that makes up the white is, perhaps, the painting's most dominant feature. But Manet also makes obvious his liking for Japanese prints, placing beside his own controverted Olympia.
Manet was very much so wedded to a slightly old style painting. Japanese books coming from France from around about the 19th century. And they have an image where one sees very bold statements, very bold thoughts, very long areas. And this affected almost all of it. It's one of the artists who affected most.
Saksham artwork. Hello.
Because he could see that it related very much to his way of working, where he liked bold contrasts. He didn't like the kind of half-tone painting that one saw in academic painting. And so images which allowed him to make pattern-oriented pictures was much more in tune with the way how he worked.
By the late 1860s, Manet was not short of friends. Each evening, he would visit Café Gerber and his studios in the Buckingham Quarter. There, he became the focal point of a social group that included artists such as Monet, Renoir, Degas, Bazille, Pissarro, and Cézanne. These cafés have become legend in the history of Impressionism. Although we have no referendum discussion on the place, it was here that some of the greatest artists of history developed their own unique ideas. These artists were in no doubt about their hero, Edouard Manet. The controversies he generated at the Salon had given him the status of a rebel. By breaking with the conventions of academic art, Manet had inspired others to do the same. And at the Café Gerber, he sat center stage. Notoriety admired by his younger associates became known as Manet's gang.
He didn't want to be a leader of a painter, but he wanted to follow his own feelings about painting. He certainly didn't want to be a leader of people like the Impressionists who were awful and lower class than he was. He actually got on better with Degas, who was an aristocrat and had more in common with him. Manet was something of a dandy, and he looked after himself. So he was absolutely popular. We had these...
Ivan, hello. May PM po uli ako.
So he was wonderful.
Sige, check natin mamaya.
Later on, of course, he began to learn from himself.
Perhaps the most striking visual reminder of Manet's importance to his fellow artists is this portrait by Henri Fantin-Latour, entitled A Studio at Batignolles Quarter. The star of the painting is undoubtedly the painter of work, Manet. Looking on, we can see...
Ivan, kakatapos lang din ng drawing ko.
It's important to recall
Ako medyo na late ako ngayon.
in 1870,
Nag-lunch muna ako bago.
the artist depicted was Manet, even if he was more infamous than famous.
Handwriting. Hello, handwriting.
Considered himself a revolutionary. In the brochure for an 1867 exhibition of his work, it was claimed that he had no pretensions to overthrow an established mode of painting or to establish a new one. Yet the exhibition concerned was a private one-man display of his work, cited near the official Universal Exposition. It was an obvious challenge to the establishment, yet there can be little doubt establishment success was what Manet truly craved.
For Manet, he wanted success, but I think he wanted the success of his own film. And occasionally...
Nice work. Handwriting. Thank you.
Establishment. But essentially, his attitude was of the establishment should come to him.
Many students of Manet find this contradiction difficult to fathom. Perhaps there was simply a gap between Manet the painter and Manet the man.
This conflict, which seems to have within himself between which should be accepted and not accepted, stemmed from his family background, respectable middle class with careers, respectable jobs like banking and law. One felt all the time that at very bottom that's what we really like to be. But the fates were against him at the time, and his own emotion at the time led him astray. I don't think Manet would ever be happy. Manet was a somewhat happy figure. This is my opinion.
Kilala mo yung channel Art Gear Guide? Hindi. Doon ako nakakuha ng information about mga art materials, especially color pencils, watercolor pencils. Art Gear Guide, hindi ko pa napanood.
From childhood onwards, he was a left-wing Republican opposed to the Second Empire. In 1867, he painted his most overtly political work, the execution of the Emperor Maximilian. It was an event very much in the news. The French Emperor had installed Maximilian, Austrian nobleman, as Emperor of Mexico, only to abandon him to enemy forces. To depict Maximilian's death on firing squad, Manet borrowed heavily from Goya's 3rd of May, but incorporated his own unconventional approach to perspective. This approach can also be seen in The Balcony, a canvas from 1869 that again shows Goya's influence. But The Balcony is a significant work in its own right. Perhaps unknown to himself, he was making discoveries about the representation of 3 dimensions on a flat surface.
The obvious thing is the balcony, the line balcony, which cuts right across, is as delicate all perspective to person. He doesn't have to indulge in all sorts of tricks, illusion of perspective. We recognise it as being people behind the background light qualities is not recession colour, it's a dark area against which the figures are flat areas of colour are silhouetted. So you have the silhouettes of figures which are against a dark background, where the figures are forward, with what behind is green balcony, iron balcony, which pushes it into some middle space.
The balcony also gives an indication of Manet's personal life at the time. The woman in the foreground is Berthe Morisot, an artist who would later become a key member of the Impressionists. Although Manet had married Suzanne Lienhoff in 1863, there is no doubt that Manet and Morisot possessed strong feelings for each other, although the physical nature of their relationship is uncertain.
Ivan, please let me know din po if the hands and fingers of pedestrians are quite flat or sakto lang.
And a physical affair with her would not have been out of character.
Sige, compare natin dun sa reference.
One such young woman was Eva Gonzalez, who began to sit for Manet in 1869, and his closeness to the artist was a source of concern to Berthe myself. However, this 1870 portrait of Eva perhaps fails to capture any feelings the artist had towards his model. July 1870, Manet and his fellow Parisians were faced with problems far greater than those of art. The outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War. Different artists reacted in different ways to the news. Manet, like Degas, enlisted as a gunner in Paris. Bazile's decision to fight cost him his life, while Renoir took a safe posting in the south, and Monet famously fled to London. After the war and the horrors of the Paris Commune, artistic life returned, subtly different from before. Significantly, Claude Monet stopped submitting paintings to the Salon. Having already pioneered the Impressionist approach to light and colour with his paintings of 1869 and 1870, he and many of his fellow artists now began to grow frustrated with Salon rejections. They grew convinced of the merits of putting on their own independent exhibition. Eventually, in 1874, the first such show opened and was quickly christened the Impressionist exhibition. It featured the work of Monet, Renoir, Bertrand Morisot, Degas, Cézanne, and Pissarro. It did not feature work by Edouard Manet. Despite being perceived by the public as the leader of this new breed of artists, Manet refused to exhibit them. His loyalties remained wholly with the Salon. This was perhaps understandable. In the early 1870s, Manet's art seemed to be paying dividends for him. In 1872, he sold 28 of his canvases for over 50,000 francs to the dealer Paul Durand-Ruel, the best-known Impressionist work. The following year, he sold 15 works to a wealthy opera star for 20,000 francs. That same year, he achieved genuine acclaim at the Salon with Le Bon Pop, a cheerful image influenced by the great Dutch portraitist Frans Hals. But Le Bon Pop could hardly be considered one of Manet's most significant works.
Ivan, you have television on your side.
Designed purely for
Hindi, speaker lang from na YouTube. Nakikinig lang ako ng documentary from YouTube, tapos naka-speaker lang siya.
It was the one which most people saw. He had really entered kind of impressive influence. But he actually said
love
to
me.
his friends, why exhibit independently? So that people understand. So that it was part of the fact that he was beginning to win audience through his ideas, and that therefore, in the process, should be able to bring the modern impressionists with him.
It is an irony, typical of Manet, that in the same year he chose not to exhibit with Monet and the Impressionists, he worked extensively with Monet and painted the most impressionist images of his career. The summer of 1874 saw Manet stay with his friend at the boating resort of Argenteuil on the river Seine. There, he adopted the open-air approach to comedy. This is Manet's famous image of Monet at work on his floating studio boat. It's interesting to compare this work with the balcony from 5 years before. In the earlier work, facial detail was lacking. Here, it is almost non-existent, a typically impressionist approach, most emphatic in the depiction of Monet's wife, Camille. Despite this, Manet never completely eliminated detail from the human figure. He was when voting, also from 1874, provides a further striking example of Manet's own brand of Impressionism. Perhaps the greatest of Manet's paintings that summer was Argenteuil, a depiction of a man and woman visiting the riverside resort. It is an undeniably impressionist work, with the artist deploying a far lighter palette to capture the light of open-air scene just as effectively as Monet.
I think it was almost like a relaxation.
To
Sit
say.
outside and paint gardens and stuff. And because you've become associated with the other artists, whatever.
Ivan, I also found another one young reference photo that was taking nasa stage performance siya. Ang ganda ng kuha, and I think good siya for colored or black and white medium.
So it's Impressionism was only like optical points, you never actually went as far as the
I think we've always got to remember when we talk about Manet or Impressionists, is that Manet himself is not really an Impressionist. It was in some of the works of Manet that the clues were given to people like Monet or Renoir as to the way forward for them. But the majority of his work is this struggle between the emerging French classical concentrate and what is more like it's successfully these other artists.
The year after the summer with Monet, Manet visited Venice, where he painted the famous Grand Canal, a vibrant image with choppy, impressionist brushwork and a shimmering sense of light. The Grand Canal represents the conclusion of Manet's most impressionist period. It's possible that his ongoing sensitivity played a part in this. Although he must have been aware of the condemnation of the Impressionist exhibition the year before, in 1875 he submitted Argenteuil to the Salon. Though it was accepted, it was almost like
Ivan, pero mas gusto akong i-draw yung 2023 Japanese superhero drama. Her name is Rita Kaniska.
Manet felt the full wrath of the guardians of orthodoxy. Again, criticism helped. In many ways, 1876 was even worse than that. The Salon rejected both his submissions, and though the artist responded by holding a one-man show in his own studio, he appears to have been profoundly disillusioned. His work rate dropped, and his only significant canvas that year was this portrait of Salon, a well-known poet who vociferously supported the Impressionists. Soon, however, Manet's artistic difficulties would be gravely overshadowed. In 1876, he began to feel pain through his left foot. He dismissed it as rheumatism, even when it began to limp badly. It wasn't. It was locomotor ataxia, a disorder of the nervous system closely related to syphilis. It was also incurable and eventually fatal. Though only in his mid-40s, Manet realized that his final years were upon him. His reaction was to increase his output, and for subject matter, he turned time and again to the characters and places of the city, with Paris's cafes and bars providing his greatest inspiration.
Tumata kasi sa isip ko yung lines niya na the law is a spear that slays kings. The law is also a shield that protects the evil. Ano yun? Japanese kumbaga yung salita tapos may subtitle.
Once you're wrapped, you can't go back. Cornetto chocolate. Irresistible chocolate ice cream with chocolate sauce and chocolate chips, wrapped in a crunchy wafer coat. Cornetto, unwrapped.
Canvases such as 1877's The Plum and 1879 1879's waitress serving beer are typical of the period.
You know me.
The artist
Hello, hello, you
clear
know
once
me.
again his love of humanity. Cafe scenes such as these were not unusual. Degas' Absinthe from 1876 is a memorable example of the genre. But whereas Degas appears to hint at a moral message, a canvas like Manet's Inside the Cafe concentrates on expressing the vitality and humanity of the cafe, that most famous of Parisian meeting places.
In his cafe pictures, I believe Manet was trying to paint a scene of everyday life that he changed from to doing actually impressionist work at night because he was working inside a cafe.
Despite the increasing seriousness of his illness, Manet
Flynn
continued
Rider
to
again,
pursue
Ice.
mainstream success that had always eluded him. In 1879, he wrote to the
Yes, favorite ko kasi
offering to
sila.
paint two large murals.
Yeah, sinabi niya in the Japanese language of English translation. Even if
Following
this
summer,
show is completely fictional, may mga part yung series na tumatalakay sa reality. The title of the series is
though
Oshama Sentai King.
continued to paint still lifes, landscape, and this timeless canvas showing his elderly mother in the garden at his country retreat. But his health was now failing bad, and the success he had always craved seemed to have eluded him. But the ironies of that were not yet complete. For the 1881 Salon, he submitted Portrait of Henri Rochefort, a canvas depicting a well-known contemporary event, the escape of the Company leader from his prison on a French Pacific colony. Like the execution of Maximilian, this was an overtly political piece of work, whose anti-government message was obvious at the time. However, the Salon had now changed its structure. It was now under the control of a committee of artists, not the French state, and this worked to Manet's advantage. Whereas he could not even exhibit his first political masterpiece, the portrait of Rochefort was
Charcoal
not only
drawing.
accepted by the Salon,
Girl lip
but
is
also
looking weird. Yeah, at this point, it is. Actually, the 90% looks weird because it's just the marker base. But when I put colored pencils, it will be corrected. It will be more like, it wouldn't look weird when I put colored pencil.
And instead of trying to go forward, experimenting, he was actually consolidating what he was doing. Meanwhile, taste had rather gone on as well. He hadn't influenced the sound, so that they were different working groups. And I think that the combination was that he, in a sense, compromised. I think that he ceased to put forward boundaries. Meanwhile, the fellow had come to herself in ideas. And he enjoyed the recognition which they gave his idol, for instance, was. And I think that was something which he perhaps rather enjoyed than the rest of the life was doing.
better was to come. In 1881, he was awarded the Legion of Honor. His old friend, Antoine Proust, had become government minister for the arts and used his influence to secure his ultimate unofficial recognition. Unfortunately, Manet would not be able to enjoy for long his newfound acclaim. He had less than 18 months to live. But in that time, he summoned his artistic efforts one last time to create the painting that remains his last and greatest masterpiece, the Bar of the Folie Virgin. For his final great work, Manet returned to the vibrant world of the Parisian cafe, although the famous Folie Bergère was more than just a cafe. Its circus performance was also a strong part of its attraction. Manet began the painting by making studies on the premises, but his illness meant the canvas was executed in the studio, where the model stood behind a dock constructed for the purpose. By early 1882, Manet had defied his increasing disability and completed his masterpiece. It is a painting whose appeal is perhaps difficult to pin down. Having said that, there are few students who deny this one painting its status as one of the greatest images of 19th century art.
To many people, Lord of the Bergère is regarded as a best work. I'm not certain that it necessarily be the best. It seems to bring together a number of the original spectacular and whichever one is
If you walked away.
The thing is,
Ivan, watercolor is infamous for making your
just as much scam
initial drawing creepy and cringe. In watercolor, you have to endure the ugly process in order to achieve beauty.
is
Yeah, that's right.
that we can
That's
actually
right. Even with the markers, it will look creepy at the beginning. It look at this. It doesn't look good, right? Because it's just a marker. But when you layer colored pencil above this, hopefully it will turn out beautiful at the end of the process. Hello, Chuck. At PMD, what are you drawing? This is an animated character from the movie Tango. I'm using the very underrated marker-based technique for colored pencils.
And the reason why a reflection is set off to the right is for the other person to paint. That's right, the very right hand edge of the painting, you'll see a man dressed in black.
Changing.
Therefore, as a person, the person conceiving the is a picture of sexual favours as well.
She is talking to a well-dressed man about town.
Ivan, because in watercolor, if you try to start with eyes, dark colors, you will achieve a bad output. Chuck, oh, okay, it looks good so far. Oh, thank you, thank you.
Use a person who goes to the Salon, who's a member of the upper middle class. You put this girl on your afternoons off, shall we say, for a completely different gender. And this is the enormous skill of these. I don't know that you could say that Folie Bergère was specifically his masterpiece, but I think that you could say that it was a fine statement.
Manet attended the 1882 Salon, where art Folie Bergère was an overwhelming success, but he was now a dying man. The following winter, the end drew near. On the 20th of April 1883, he underwent the amputation of a gangrenous leg. The operation failed to benefit the stricken artist. 10 days later, on the 30th of April, Edouard Manet died. He was 51. In his life, he had at last achieved the success he dreamed.
For a lot of time he worked, he was largely from the south.
That's why you will never see the watercolor portrait artist starting with the black.
that he became accepted. Even so, despite that fact, I don't think his ideas changed at all. And some of his papers, even at the end of his life, were just as rebellious or provocative as some of the so I think that Manet relished
Saksi Pandi Art Channel, 1 Junior. Good morning. Hello, Saksi Pandi Art Channel.
Without a second thought, threw in the towel and headed for the pyramids. It was the first and only time the sun was light. Not the last. Pissarro spent 2 years in the Venezuelan capital. He survived by painting portraits, and he grew ever more convinced of his destiny as a painter. When he eventually placed on submitting
Okay. Seems so far. Dreams will take me there. Too close to find a place I love. Sakship on the Archana is a kind request.
Corot was among the first French landscapists to paint outdoors in the open air. Previously, landscape painting was only sketched outdoors. The final canvas was executed in the studio. But in the mid-19th century, Camille Corot, painters of the so-called Barbizon school, reacted against the old tradition. Their outdoor images were fresher, lighter, and were often characterized by a greater sense of realism than the dark tone historical works favoured by the annual official exhibition of French art, the Salon. These were the artists that influenced the young Pissarro, as they were all the great Impressionists.
Pissarro's first master he chose was Cora, who was of course a landscape painter, who went outside to paint. And this was something that Pissarro started doing. After a few years, from the 50s to the early 60s, a lighthouse named Cora, Pissarro changed his allegiance really.
Sakship on the Archana, please read above, please. I couldn't. The messages above are, I couldn't see it. I couldn't scroll back.
What he took from Cora,
Can you just repeat if you have a question or something?
application of paint, the free brush stroke, and what appealed to him as well in Courbet was Courbet's political stance, which was socialist. Courbet caused a revolution in subject matter really. Instead of painting even the aristocracy, let alone Greek nymphs, he painted the peasants that he knew from living in countryside. His background was a scandal because they were life-size peasants and dominating the language. It was considered very unsuitable, but this
Inspired by Corot, Pissarro began to paint outdoors, continuing his training with
Julie
Spanish
Herdinera, wow, Avatar
and the famous
Arts.
Swiss Academy.
Love it, magandang
In
hapon.
1859,
Hello, Julie, hello.
his first public success, when the Salon accepted one of his landscapes.
Pero hindi siya Avatar.
And it was always a thought of his
Tangled.
career. This was in spite of the continuing support of his family, who had also returned to Paris. again compelled to work for the relocated family business, but he was able to continue painting, mostly in the open air. Sadly, few of those early works have survived. Wonder Hat dates from 1864, a depiction of the banks of the London. This canvas was another successful Salon picture, but it is a disappointingly subdued image. Significantly, it was a canvas painted in the studio, almost certainly executed with a conservative taste of the Salon in mind. Like many artists of his age, Pissarro was prepared to compromise his art for the sake of commercial success.
The Salon in the 60s and of course later as well was
If I
very
could.
artists. In the 60s, the Impressionists considered Salon because there was no outlet for them. They didn't show their paintings in the Salon. They would have great difficulty finding buyers and establishing a reputation for themselves.
At the early part of Salon's career, exhibiting at the Salon was almost essential. It was really the only way an artist could ever hope to become a professional artist. It was the only exhibiting venue we had. If he wanted to paint peasants or vintage paintings. Now there was in fact a niche for that kind of artist within the Salon at the time, despite the fact that the majority of paintings were classical paintings from Greece and Rome. It gave him an intro interest, but it was never one that allowed him really to build very much of a career, and so he looked outside of that system.
In 1864, Pissarro's desire for commercial success was understandable. He was now head of his own family. 4 years previously, he took up with his mother's maid, Julie Velle. In 1863, the still unmarried couple had a son, Lucien, the first of their 6 children who would reach adulthood. Money now became even tighter, but somehow the young family survived. In 1866, the Pissarros moved to the town of Pontoise, to the northwest of Paris. It was cheap, and it gave Camille Pissarro the opportunity to paint in the open air. But he was now in his mid-30s, and his art was still evolving. Pissarro's influences revealed themselves in his work. In Barges at La Roche-Guyon from 1865, he used the palette in the manner of Gustave Courbet. The continuing influence of Corot also made itself felt in canvases such as this 1868 image of the Poppius Quay at Pontoise, although Pissarro's contrasting of light and shade was more striking than that of the older artist. The late 1860s also saw Pissarro influenced by painters younger than himself. By the time this canvas was painted, Pissarro was already in regular contact with a group of artists of whom he would become forever associated. The painters known to posterity as the Impressionists.
He developed characteristics of the style of the young Impressionists. With Pissarro's painting, we see a very much more long-term well-bodied painting. His brush strokes tend to be smaller, rather more sophisticated. And the paint is quite characteristic of the recognized Pissarro as being distinct from, say, Monet or Renoir.
Pissarro had first met Claude Monet as early as 1859, and by the late 1860s, he had struck up a friendship with the self-confident young artist from Le Havre. They met regularly at Paris's Café Germain, along with other young painters, including Auguste Renoir, Alfred Sisley, and Frederic Bazin.
They tend to look back at artists whose work was akin to theirs. Howells was a painter who painted very freely in a way that they
Julie, anong paper gamit mo dyan? Ano nga ba to?
He was
Ah...
in the 17th century.
Ano to? Strathmore 300 smooth surface.
But you see,
Ivan, do you also feel guilty of ano yan, of high consumption of pencils while we are losing more trees resulting in climate change?
the Impressionists could see how
Hindi naman guilty, kundi kasi madami namang kumbaga I think part naman talaga siya ng ng consumerism. Kung wala din naman tayong pencil, wala rin naman mga artist. So, tapos kumbaga dapat siguro balance lang. Hindi din naman pwede kasi trees, yung mga papers galing din naman sa trees and marami pa rin namang industries na mas kumbaga dapat mas mag-guilty katulad ng mga over utilize ng mga minerals ng mining something. So
Perhaps prompted by his financial
siguro yung
Pissarro had become
balance na lang talaga dapat.
a Republican with a strong belief in the rights of the individual. In time, this belief led to his embracing the philosophy of anarchism, and he threw off his Jewish upbringing to become a militant atheist. In addition to politics, the young artists at the Café Jaguar often discuss their own work. Stimulated by these discussions, the paintings of Monet, Renoir, Pissarro, and others began to display certain similarities of approach. These included an emphasis on open-air landscape painting, the use of choppy brushwork for obscure detail, and a belief in contemporary subject matter. They began to reject the dark tones of the typical Salon painting and came to the viewpoint that light was more important than form. In the late 1860s, these themes established themselves among the artists at the Café Jaguar. These were the basic tenets of what would become known as Impressionism.
As Impressionism evolves into the
Paradise to the parking lots.
There is developing interesting. There is a consistency in something concerning the sky, concerning and that he pursued therefore more logically.
Paradise, put up a parking lot.
The Café Jaguar artists also discussed new theories of color, notably the work of Eugene Chevron.
Julie, kaya siguro din naman tayo dapat mag-guilty kasi part ng ating life, yung ating talent, gaya na sa Panginoon Diyos, kailangan lang gamitin ang tama. Tama din naman. Sa papers naman sa Strathmore, Bristol Big Power naman ang example ng eco-free paper.
For many, the work they produced that summer marks the birth of Impressionist painting. But it was not only Monet and Renoir who painted at Bougival. Camille Pissarro was there as well. In the spring of 1869, he had moved with his family to nearby Louvciennes. That summer, he too painted at La Grenouille.
There were a number of places near the house for large which a number of Impressionists left for something. Salon was concerned with people, Renoir line. Monet was more concerned with the more sort of natural effects within an urban environment. It was a quality of light reflecting off the water, which, for instance, Monet, to a certain extent, was concerned with. It was reflected almost in an abstract sense, the actual individuals of the buildings, the little trees, the little people.
Pave Paradise.
The visual effect.
And Strathmore Wind Power is under 400 series. Sana may mga 500 in the future.
50s, early 60s. And when he began painting like this in the mid-60s and late 60s, his paintings were not accepted by the Salon. He began taking a serious interest in colour, reading Chevreul's book on colour theory, and observing for himself that light altered the colour of things. He also realised that shadows were not black, but were various colours in fact, and even sometimes had complementary colours reflecting through. So, in fact, he was one of the main supporters of the idea of an alternative exhibition for the Impressionist group themselves.
Kushal Official Art. Hello sir, how are you? I'm good, thank you, Kushal.
The similarity between the approach of Monet, Renoir and Pissarro can be seen clearly with Diligence of Lucien. Pissarro canvas from 1870 that uses small dabs of colour to create a light, shimmering and profoundly impressionist image. Its technical inspirations are identical to those that informed the work of Monet particularly. But soon after this canvas was completed, Pissarro and Monet found themselves with more in common features than they had. In July 1870, the Franco-Prussian War. At the end of the year, both Monet and Pissarro were exiled in the capital of the Empire, London.
Kushal Official Art, your drawing is very good. Thank you, thank you. Made Haddad, you are amazing. Thank you.
As a radical Republican, he was keen to fight once the Emperor Napoleon.
Do you have ways to draw other than Loomis? I'm trying Loomis also, but I'm not very. I'm not using it very frequently with my outlines because I want to achieve more realistic portrait. That's why grid method, like what I did here, is better. Ivan, lahat naman siguro ng Strathmore is eco-friendly, pero mas eco-friendly ang wind power kasi wind energy ang ginagamit sa production.
It was a mixed time for him. On the positive side, he was able to study the great works of Turner and Constable alongside his fellow exile Monet. He also continued to paint, producing memorable images of the South London suburbs where he lived, including this painting of the famous Crystal Palace. He met Paul Durand-Ruel.
It's the square style. Yes, it is.
Finally, Pissarro used the London exile to legitimize his relationship with Julie. In June 1871, they married at a register office in Croydon. But by then, Pissarro was desperate to return to France. That month, he wrote bitterly to a friend, "Here, there is no art. Everything is a matter of business. It is only abroad that you realize just how beautiful, great, and hospitable France is." But when he was able to return to his home later in 1871, he found a disastrous scene waiting for him. Prussian soldiers had used his Lucien house for the hundreds of paintings and artists.
Ivan, are you watching Western documentary? Oh,
1,200 paintings and drawings.
pinakikinggan ko yung life story na talagang super detailed. Yung human life story talaga ng 5 of the greatest impressionists in history. Tapos na ako kay sa unang pinakita dito si Edward Manet. Nakakaiyak yung storya niya. Tapos pangalawa ito na nandito na tayo kay Pissarro.
An 1872 canvas with a strong emphasis on the physical labour of the washerwomen. Many times in his career, Pissarro returned to the theme of working people, and people themselves tend to be emphasized more in Pissarro's work than that of the other great Impressionists. But when this canvas was produced, the term
Si Pissarro pala ang oldest sa mga Impressionists.
major practitioners, virtually all of whom had given up submitting work to the Salon. Camille
Maid
Pissarro was
Dudud,
behind his own
you are a
work,
teacher.
and
Thank you
still
so much.
although Paul Durand
Tehus
did
Bakar.
was
What's
Paris
Bakar?
and other campuses small but badly needed sums of money. In August 1872, with his family, Pissarro moved back to the town of Pontoise, to the district of Lermington, where he continued to paint and be exposed to artistic ideas. In 1877, he painted Trip de Boeuf, the work which shows the influence of a fellow artistic friend, but also one of Theo, Paul Cézanne.
They were working together in Salon, and they both did paintings of red roofs and bourgeois, and Cézanne probably learned from Pissarro something about constructing painting. And of course Cézanne went on to make amazingly constructed, thought-through paintings after that period of working with Pissarro, and he preferred later in life Pissarro was the great Pissarro as his master. What Pissarro learned from Cézanne was perhaps something about colour, a certain confidence in approaching the motif.
On the surface, if you look at a typical Cézanne work, for instance, typical Pissarro, it doesn't take very much compare at all. What we've got to look at is that particularly the early period, say the House of the Hanged Man, and if we look at works by Pissarro like things with red roofs, we can see quite clearly that not simply the use of paint, because actually very simple, thick paint which is short, that is, does not have a lot of very old paint, transparent washes, probably use of the
Hey,
paint.
paradise.
And the subject is
Put
an
up a
ordinary
parking lot.
house, just as red roofs and ordinary village is sea trees. So that was already work method of that. There was a few short brush strokes for one way and a few short brush strokes another way. This is something Pissarro seems to take up.
Pissarro's regard for his friend Cézanne was demonstrated in 1874. That year, work by both artists was displayed at a remarkable event. It was an independent exhibition of art organized by the artists whose approach would soon become known as Impressionism. They included Monet, Renoir, Degas, and Pissarro, who contributed manfully to the organization of the event. This included his personal insistence that work by Cézanne should be included in the show, which opened in Paris in April of 1874. The failure of the exhibition is now a famous moment in the history of art. Critics rushed to condemn the works on display, including Pissarro's, and sales were minimal. But the 1874 event did generate interest, even if it was usually negative. But at the very least, it gave the new group of artists a name. One of the works on display at the show was Monet's Impression Sunrise. The critic, Louis Leroy, borrowed the title of the seascape and condemned the whole 1874 event as the exhibition of the Impressionists. The name stuck, and subsequent exhibitions were advertised as Impressionist events. In all, 8 exhibitions took place in Paris between 1874 and 1886. Critics and the public growing ever more appreciative of the work on display. Of the many great artists who contributed to the exhibition, only Pissarro was present at them all. An Impressionist painter with his own unique approach.
In the 70s, his pictures were more structural. Maybe it was the legacy of horror. But he was interested in composition and following in a way that Monet is not. Monet's paintings became dominated by the brushstroke, whereas Pissarro's, although the brushstroke was very important, they also had a certain kindness about composition, which marks him out following.
A paradise
In the 1870s,
out of a
Pissarro's
parking
regular
lot.
contributions to Impressionist shows did little to improve his financial well-being. An economic recession hung in the air. Dealers like Paul Durand-Ruel, who admired Impressionists, were unable to buy their work. Now, Camille Pissarro was well into his 40s and often depressed at the apparent failure of his career. In 1873, he executed this self-portrait, which perhaps captures something of the seriousness of his life at the time. We know that, at times, his wife begged him to give up painting and get a steady job. It's fortunate that he didn't. Over the next 30 years, he created some of the finest paintings of the Impressionist age, and success would eventually be his. Rural themes continue to feature strongly in his work. 1873's The Haystacks, Pontoise, shows the artist's ability to capture a fleeting moment in the everyday life of the countryside. As in many Pissarro images, also included in the scene. As we've seen, Pissarro was always keen to incorporate men and women into his landscapes. A striking example of this was The Threshing Machine from 1876, a painting whose themes include the nobility of toil and the dubious benefits of the industrial age, all unified in typically Impressionist brushwork. By the early 1880s, the depiction of rural labour had become the dominant theme of Pissarro's art. By that time, his fortunes were at last beginning to change. The end of the recession meant that Durand-Ruel and others were able to buy Impressionist paintings once again. But around this time, Camille Pissarro began to move away from some of the main tenets of Impressionism. Significantly, he began to eschew landscapes in favour of pictures. His subjects were the men, women, and France's rural peasants. Time and again, he painted young women tending animals in the field. A choice of subject matter that had also been made earlier in the century by Jean-François Millet. Millet's work was seen by many as overtly political, and it's possible to see a political message in Salon, especially his images of rural labour. By the mid-1880s, he had become a follower of the radical political philosophy of anarchism. With this in mind, it's difficult to believe that his many images of labouring peasants were entirely devoid of political subtext.
Salon was very much social. He had this idea that work was honourable, work where one was happy, was real. And so his paintings tend to show pictures of strong men, people working in the fields, and they do tend to depict people rather more distinct than say like Monet or Pissarro. It is a specific painting of a person, usually doing it. So there was a certain sense of this underlying political philosophy coming out from his painting.
His philosophy was concerned with usual audience. Everybody, except everybody's there are structures which get in the way of individuals' matter. But it is structures which are very simple and aristocracy. And of course, the economic structure, the capitalist system. But anarchist is not something which is necessarily destructive, but it was concerned with what we might call now